My name is Damian. Welcome to my channel, Growing Together. Today we're going to talk to one of the co-founders of Flux. His name is Daniel Keller. This super genius, these super geniuses, these guys, they understand the heart of what this technology can do. They understand the full benefits of the potential of what Web3 can bring to us in terms of protecting the individual and their privacy. They are part of giving the privacy and the control back to the people. The more you deep dive what Flux is, the more mind blown you are. What a great way to bring solutions on Web3 for applications, websites, systems of governance. If Bitcoin was a monkey, Flux is the human being evolved. They have the Minecraft server. They have Polkadot, Cadena, Cadex, DocuShield. The list goes on, and the list goes on. My point is, I want to be running on Flux, But why? The why is the question. So hopefully in this interview, we're going to be able to answer some of those questions for you. What are the benefits of running on Flux? What came before it? What are they changing? What are they doing that's different? So you'll know that if you're running on Flux, it is the monkey to the human being involved. Without any further ado, here's Daniel Keller. Today we have Daniel Keller here with us. He is the founder and CEO of Flux. When I heard about Flux, you're running on Flux, it was Chinese to me. I had no idea what it was, but it was like the Mercedes stamp. It's like, oh my God, they're running on Flux. And that's the impression you get when you hear it's running on Flux and you don't know much about what Flux is. Mm-hmm. Now, when you start learning about Flux, it's fascinating. Correct me if I'm wrong. You are joining servers, right? Like website servers with blockchain technology.
Yeah,
is that correct?
I think the best thing to do is just to kind of explain a little bit about what Flux is, and that is Flux is a decentralized compute network. So we were Web3 before Web3 was cool. Everybody uses the term Web3 as like a catch-all, whether it's NFTs or DeFi or metaverse. But really, the underlying infrastructure that runs Web3 needs to be decentralized. And that's what Flux set out to do, and that's what we've accomplished. So today, we have 13,500 nodes that are running all over the world. They're ran by individuals, so we call them decentralized systems administrators. And basically, we created a model that looks a lot like what AWS is doing in Web2. Only the difference is we bypass that central entity. So, we go straight to the people that supply the resources, and they're the ones that have built out the network. Now,
we have a lot of people in Cadena that know exactly what you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong in the way I'm dumbing it down, but basically 13,500 computers are out there in the world hosting a website. Am I incorrect in that?
It's an operating system that basically ties all of them together. So, the way that AWS works today is if Dan needs to deploy a website, an app, an Oracle, anything, any front end, back end, I go to AWS, I upload my data to the new server that I created. They put it in one of about 20 colo data centers, and they run it. That's a centralized entity. In Web3, and what Dan does now today as a Web3, I go to runonflux.io. I take my Dockerized application, I walk through the process, and I deploy it. But instead of deploying to colo data centers that are controlled by one entity, it's deployed across a vast network of folks that are running infrastructure.
The node runners.
Yes. Bitcoin is great because it's decentralized, it's uncensorable, storage of value, right? Flux is the exact same thing, but instead of storage of value, we're doing actually compute resources for anybody that wants to be decentralized.
The things that are running on Flux, you can go to their website and see what's running on Flux. I mean, there's some that I know that I'm very familiar with, like Cadex and DocuShield, because I love those guys and I've been connected with them since they started. They're there, but also you have the Minecraft server is running on Flux, and it's incredible what these guys are doing. My next question is, let's say that I'm a developer and I'm starting a website and you want to have that running on Flux. Mm-hmm. Is there someone to help you that maybe is not so tech savvy to help you through the process in Flux that we can contact? Or do we talk to our developer and we tell them to figure it out? What's the process to be able to be connected to Web3 so that we are decentralized in all aspects?
Yeah, we call that blockchain by birth. So essentially, when you're building your product out, you're thinking about the best way to decentralize it from the beginning. But many people have already deployed websites, apps, oracles, you name it, on, centralized solutions like AWS. So our goal was to create an almost seamless process, whether you've deployed on AWS or whether you're deploying on Flux, it feels about like the same. So developers can deploy there. Normal everyday people, if you have a little technical aptitude, can deploy there as well. If you need help, the community is always readily available to be able to supply, whatever you need in terms of assistance.
It sounds like a project in the making. In other words, not for me, but for someone else to create a service that does that.
We actually have a service called Rent a Dev. You can go in and you can rent a developer in our Discord, and then they'll help you, Dockerize your application or deploy your app or whatever like that. So yeah, we have people that are building business models around all aspects of the platform.
Do you also have the website developers as well? Is it a complete service?
Or
It's not that complete. So essentially what you'd have to do is
That's another step. Yeah.
Yeah. We have deployed WordPress on Flux that I believe is in its final phases of ramping up so that people will be able to deploy that right directly on Flux out of WordPress.
Wow. When is that going to come?
It's there now.
That's huge.
It's there today. The one problem is we're aiming to fix in the next month or so is persistent storage. So we needed to replicate in multiple places. So
I see.
We should be able to wrap that up real soon, and then anyone can deploy anything they want, literally anything they want.
Wow, that's cool. And again, I'm going to dumb it down for the gardeners in my audience. Basically, WordPress, it's a very simple way if you want to build a website to build a website. It's very seamless, easy. It's made for you, basically.
Yep, template driven.
Exactly. That sounds awesome. So you're saying that you still have to work out some kinks there?
Well, no, we deployed it beta, so we just go through a testing phase before we release everything. So it's there. It just needs to be fully released.
So if we go to your Discord with a WordPress, we would be able to get a little bit of guidance on how to make it launch.
Yeah, don't come yet. Wait till we're finished. Yeah, it's a closed. All of our stuff is closed beta, so we want to make sure that everything's. The I's are dotted, the T's are crossed before we're ready to deploy something of that nature.
And do you have an idea of when? Because I think that when you do that, that's humongous in terms of the amount.
It's within the next month or two.
Oh, wow.
So it's short, very short-term roadmap stuff.
That means you're opening it up to the founders who are not as tech savvy. That is a huge step, I think. Again, we're talking to gardeners and 5-year-olds in the crypto world. I'm somewhere in the middle in terms of my knowledge, and I'm constantly learning in this world, and it's fascinating, and I absolutely just love learning about what this is because it's so, you can logically see how it's going to change things. And so my question is, what are the advantages for having something run on Flux as opposed to the Web2 centralized? Why would I want to be running on Flux?
Well, I think the thing that makes us different than every other platform is the fact that we have redundancy built in by birth. So essentially, when you deploy on Flux, you're deploying on a minimum of 3 instances. AWS will charge you $90 for one instance. So if you need redundancy, you need to spend another $90 for dual servers. And if you want to load balance, you're going to need 3 servers, and that's going to cost you the better part of $300 for deployment. Right. You can do that exact same thing on Flux for around $10. So, so it's unbelievably cheap to deploy on Flux. And people say, well, how can you offer that service that cheap? It's because the way Flux was established, our node operators are providing compute resources, and in return, they're rewarded with the Flux asset, which powers the entire ecosystem. They're rewarded with Flux from the block reward. So it's a proof of work project. So it's like Bitcoin in the sense there's miners that help with consensus and validating transactions, but there's node operators too. So it gets split 50-50.
You have to know the differences between proof of work and proof of stake. And if you're in crypto and don't know that yet, you need to learn what that is. So what you guys have done with Flux is kind of a hybrid.
Here, I'll help you out. Proof of work is decentralized consensus mechanism, and it's what makes decentralization great. Proof of stake is centralized. The way that it currently is deployed with Ethereum and other platforms is a highly centralized, highly controlled mechanism. So although it looks like a blockchain, it's more like a federated blockchain, which means that central entities control it. For instance, Ethereum is pretty much controlled by JP Morgan, Consensus, and Infura. So those are all companies that fall under the JP Morgan umbrella. So essentially what Ethereum is doing is going from quasi decentralized platform where 70% of its nodes run on Amazon. Now it's going to be 100% centralized. So, way to go, guys.
Daniel, I got to tell you something, Daniel. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm a Cadena maximalist. There's a reason for that, and it's what you're talking about. I feel like in the crypto world, the proof of stake world has really pulled the wool over people in terms of pretending to be crypto. Again, I'm a maximalist. I'm a little bit of a fanatic in that sense because ETH scares the crap out of me. It's not decentralization, not just ETH, but a lot of these blockchains. And I was wondering, considering you're a hybrid in this world, right? You have the proof of stake system with the nodes. It seems like a necessity, though, to run the websites.
Yeah, we call them proof of use of work because essentially they're not like just conventional nodes, right? So they actually participate in
sustaining the data.
Yeah. They assist the miners. They also assist the consensus mechanism of Flux. So we call that proof of use of work, and we're going to do proof of use of work on mining as well. But that's an entirely different conversation for a different time. What was the question again?
The question was basically, what is your feeling on proof of stake? For a lot of people in the Cadena world, it's the enemy, and we just want to enlighten the world about the dangers. In other words, the things that are not being said. There's a lot of money being thrown at it's crypto. It's all crypto, and money's being thrown. And most investors that enter the world don't research the technology and don't understand how it works. I found out about proof of stake because I was asking questions in the Cardano community, deep questions about, hey, wait, what's a node operator? How does it work? And I was being met with a lot of hostility, just trying to find answers. And that started to open my eyes. And that's when I found Cadena. What would you say to the crypto world? How do you feel about proof of stake systems? Is there one that you can say, well, I can trust in that one? What's your take on it? I know the Cadena maximalists are like, proof of stake is a gimmick crypto. That's our line.
Yeah. Well, it's centralized crypto. It's federated. It's no different than some of the. I mean, it's basically we have ledgers today that are controlled. So I always say that proof of stake is the attempt of legacy-based institutions to enter the crypto space and take away the whole mantra of why crypto was born. So. I would say this.
So, you're with us. He's with us. He's one of us.
Are you kidding me, man? I mean, Flux has been a fair mine project, proof of work. Since the day ACE completely ASIC resistant. I mean, we are 100%, all about decentralization. I like Cadena too a lot, and I'll tell you why. Is I think they scale effectively, and they do it with a proof of work consensus model, which makes sense. I mean, they're braided chains, and all what they're doing over there is interesting. So my layer one solution, if you say, hey Dan, what's the layer one solution you like? I like Cadena. Right. For layer two solutions, Flux is obviously the go-to. A lot of projects are born on Cadena and run on Flux, and that makes them blockchain by birth, because not only are they born on Cadena and a proof of work project, but then they're deploying their infrastructure on a decentralized model like Flux. That's why you see a lot of the projects that deploy in that Cadena ecosystem end up in Flux labs or running on Flux, because it just makes sense to be decentralized.
Exactly. Maybe you don't need it, for example, if you have an NFT project and you just need a website, but it's good to just set off on that foot. These project builders in Cadena are also trying to make a point. And so it's important that they also are making the example, I think.
I didn't specifically answer your question.
Go ahead. Yes.
And the question was around proof of stake, what I think of it. And what I think of it today is it's a highly centralized platform. Web2 refugees are basically taking up and building what they deem is the next version of the internet.
Yes.
However,
yes.
However, as proof of stake continues to grow, and if they do have decentralization at their heart and they can deploy infrastructure on Flux, it begins to help them become more decentralized. For instance, Solana. Solana's had a hell of a time with their validator nodes, hell of a time with their network. They could easily deploy validator nodes and infrastructure on top of Flux to make them even a little bit decentralized. So, I never talk bad about any particular technology, because there's always quick iteration in the space. So what is valid today may not be valid in 3 weeks from now, as we've seen many times.
That's so true.
But if you want to be decentralized, right, and you have the ethos of privacy, decentralization, security, owning your own data, building this, then that's proof of work all the way.
I agree completely. I have less trust, but once you have power, it's hard to let go of power unless it's going to benefit them. And there's got to be and there is a huge benefit to them moving towards decentralization. I feel that the more that people know and the more you enter this world and the more this technology is implemented, more people are going to demand for all the positives and all the ideas of crypto that make it great.
Yep.
Okay, I have another question for you, a little bit separate than this. It's a two-part question. The first is, how did you get into this world of crypto? When did you start learning about it, and what made you jump in? And the second part is, are you some kind of super genius to come up with this system? Where did you come up with Flux? What was the idea? What was the aha moment? Because the more I read about it, I'm thinking, how did you think about this? What made you put this together? What inspired you to come up with it?
Well, I got to give all the credit to my team and my co-partners. I'm a co-founder. Myself, Tadeusz Kamenta, and Parker Honeyman were really the ones that were orchestrated. I mean, Flux began its life as a fork of Zcash, and it was called Zcash. Carbon copy. Yeah. Control C, Control V, right? But we knew when we did that, we were going to start to build our own base layer. And that's exactly what we've done with Flux. How long I've been in the space, I've been in long enough to probably, and most people, there's a little gray in the beard here. Well, that's predominantly due to crypto, right? I've been in it since very, very early on. Yeah. Early enough that as I was using crypto, the one thing that stuck out to me, I actually found Bitcoin because I was playing World of Warcraft, a little MMO game, and I was a guild leader, and we were gearing up for particular instances, and we didn't have enough gold. So, I started looking at farming bots and stuff like that to farm gold, and I come across its Chinese website, and that you can buy WoW gold. So basically, they go out, they farm it, you meet them in game. You send them Bitcoin.
They give you the gold.
You send them the Bitcoin. Okay. They give you the gold. Well, boy, did I screw up, because that was hundreds and hundreds of Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God.
Away the farm. Billions of dollars.
Yeah. But what it did is it started me down the path of really falling down the rabbit hole that everybody does when they come into the crypto scene, is they start consuming data. The next thing you know, you can't sleep at night. That's all you think about, because you've realized the potential of what blockchain is.
Yes. The more you know, the more the light bulb goes on. I encourage everybody to do. I'm one of these people that says, don't listen to me. Really do your own research.
Amen.
It's easy. It's easy to find. We use these big terms that perhaps you don't understand, but the fact is, just look up those terms, what they are. They're simple ideas. And I encourage my community to just always constantly be looking at the stuff themselves. The more you know, you're not going to need me to tell you about proof of stake, proof of work. It's just going to be aha moments. And then the solutions for the future. That's another thing that's so exciting about this technology, is that if you just sit down and you apply it creatively, there's so many solutions and they're not even, there's no projects that exist that are covering all the wonderful things that can happen because of this technology.
Yep.
I really feel we're in a new renaissance. The paper money has just been introduced, like they did back then, and everybody's rejecting it. And it's a matter of time before they realize we don't have to lug around the gold anymore. This is a superior system. And this is what,
there's different forms of adoption. So there's adoption by attrition. So just as naturally projects grow, people will start to gravitate toward them. Interest would peak. They'd have this adoption curve, this bell curve that goes up like this, and they would meet critical mass, and they would just be full adoption. And then there's adoption by necessity. And these are where your government just printed a quadrillion dollars. It basically has a fully inflationary model. The money that's sitting in your bank is worth 40 or 50% less than it was 2 years ago. And that right there is by necessity. So whether you're in Venezuela or, Cuba or some of these other countries who have piss poor economic policies, right, that affect their citizens, now it's adoption by necessity. So I think you're seeing a little bit of both with crypto today. I think we're still very, very early on in this space, because the user interfaces and the security protocols that go with crypto are being tested every day. And if you don't believe me, go look what's happened in the past 3 months. Celsius, 3 Arrows, Terra Luna, all these different products, I call them refugees from Web 2, came to Web 3 thinking they could do the same thing, but they didn't have the robust build out that they had in legacy finance. I think we're very early on, and I think adoption, and that's kind of how Zelcore was born, our other project. So Flux, when the co-founders were sitting around, we were talking about what we wanted to do with the project. At that particular point in time, Amazon was doing some pretty sketchy stuff. Google was doing some sketchy stuff. And we all said, AWS was like, nah, they're taking over. They're the leaders. There's got to be another way. And that's when Flux was born. Really, the sole purpose of this project is honestly to put the power back in the hands of the people. And I know that's a cliche term. People say, power back in the hands of people.
The more you know, though, yeah.
But it's the more like you said, falling down that rabbit hole, you'll know that it's been built for the people, not for the masses. Yeah. Or it's been for the masses, not for the corporate level, tech giants.
I reiterate what you said. You talked about adoption by necessity. In Argentina, we have that 30-40% every month right now. That's insane. Circus show. It's a circus show. And we have one of these governments that, again, is just, it's all the king's men. You've read the book. It's reality. It's reality in Argentina. And I can't iterate that enough to people. The problem with crypto is, like, since I'm coming from that world, I talk to people here. They look at you like you're from Pluto.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's sit down. Let's talk. My own family.
Yeah. And I think the good analogy, because, you've mentioned a couple times about really taking this to a base level. So, I use this analogy quite often. My wife, when she goes to the ATM, she takes her ATM card out. She puts it in the ATM. She puts how much cash it is, that spits it out. She picks up the cash, she picks up her card, she picks up her receipt, and she's down the road. She doesn't understand any of the functions that happen behind the scenes to be able to bring that to her right then and there, and she doesn't care. And I think that's where we're at now, is we're building all the rails and mechanisms, the delivery framework that's going to allow regular users to use crypto, to use blockchain, and never know that they're using it. It will look like, it would feel like conventional finance, but it's been developed and built out in a different manner.
I met with a congresswoman here, Hermana Figueroa, and I talked to her about, we need government partnership for that to happen. I feel like we do. We need to work with governments for you to have that ATM machine, for you to have that place where you can use finance in the world. In Argentina, for example, I think government partnership is important. And how do you feel is the best way to go about that? Now, with crypto, we all know the benefits of it as well. We can go person to person. Like I said, the deeper you go down the rabbit hole. And that's the wonderful thing about crypto. But also, like, what would be the best way to approach government regarding this technology? I told her that Argentina needs to fork Cadena, and Argentina can benefit from the blockchain technology, that it can change so many structures in Argentina. And it'll be,
I think when you start talking about forking anything in the government, you're in trouble. But I will say this: you're on to something. And so I'm going to give you two answers to that question. The first answer is the cypherpunk Dan guy that believes that anytime you start to bring government entities into the fray, you're going to bring complexities, right? So regulatory compliance, things
bureaucracy.
Like that. It's just it's
politics.
It's just how it goes, right? The other side of the fence is Dan says, well, as this technology matures, and let's say, you got the Argentinian government that wants to deploy something on the blockchain, why not use Cadena directly instead of creating another fork? Because it's decentralized by nature right now. Now, I'm gonna answer your question before you ever ask it, because you said there needs to be regulatory and compliance, and there needs to be the ability for the government to actually use and participate in that blockchain. And that's where Flux comes into play, because Flux has built out a decentralized ecosystem that can run and interact with any chain that's in our parallel asset chains. But you can deploy what's called geolocations that are specifically geared toward your regulatory reach. So if you only want it in the EU, you can deploy directly to the EU. You want it in the States, you do it to the States. Let's say we only want it to Argentina, and you only want this geolocation, and you want those decentralized servers to ride inside of that. So when people think about...
So they can be regulated by government. That's a great solution.
They would meet regulatory compliance. So I think I'm a firm believer you can have the best of both worlds. So,
So am I. Yeah.
If Argentina was going to fork Cadena and do something like that, they could just use a federate like Hyperledger or something like that, a federate chain, right? You don't need a blockchain for that. What you need a blockchain for is for the ability for people like you and me to be able to participate in that ecosystem and be able to retain our own data and create our own value ourselves. It's two parts, and both of them I think are unique.
What you mentioned about geolocation is what a great.
That's
like
a game changer.
Flux blows my mind, and what you just told me blows my mind as well, because that's a solution to one of the biggest problems. Is how do you regulate by basically doing a geolocation separation? Okay, you're going to be government compliant from these areas. One of the great things about, for example, Cadena is the public decentralization is the fact that you want to unplug from those systems of control to have freedom and individuality in case, for example, in Argentina, we go back to a dictatorship, which has happened. I want to be out of here, and I want to be able to use my crypto to get out of here.
Yeah.
So you have to learn both worlds. You know, I believe in democracy, and I believe in independent individual thinking. So you have to learn about both worlds, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the nice thing about Flux. Flux is decentralized by nature. It means if I go to deploy an app, it's automatically going to pick 3 to 5 locations anywhere in the world unless I opt in and I tell it where to deploy directly. So it really bridges the gap between, Web 2 legacy and government, regulation and what the Web 3 world will become. I don't think there's a one-stop shop here. I think that the people that are building in blockchain today are going to be building pieces that are eventually going to come together to form what is Web3. So Flux happens to be an infrastructure play. Cadena happens to be layer 1 scaling. So, Bitcoin happens to be a storage of wealth, right? So these different pieces all work together symbiotically. That becomes the grander Web3 with a capital W versus a lowercase w. You know what I mean? Like it's the big daddy. So
to piggyback on what you're saying, I want to ask a quirky question. One of the things I'm realizing the more I learn about this technology is I see it moving us into some kind of world governance entity because of the nature of what crypto is. How do you see that?
We're already there. We're already there. We're already there. I mean, it's just the way that it's portrayed looks like that. Our finances are separated. But in reality, if you're looking what's happening with the fiat economic models across the world, they're all in the same boat. People talk about a one world currency or one world order. You know what I mean? We've already had that.
It's scary, but at the same time, unless it's democratic and just and all that stuff. But
because essentially, and the big part of this is we are outsourcing that control, to big tech companies. So the Amazons of the world, the Googles of the world, the Microsofts of the world, they're compiling all of your data. They know everything about you, where you eat, where you sleep, where you shop, where you go to.
How you think.
Yes. So anyone that would be under the illusion that they actually have freedom at this particular point in time it's insane. So, and that's why Flux was created. Point. We want to give our children something other than debt. And we want to give them a chance to have some privacy because privacy is a fundamental human right, and it's completely under assault right now.
One of the things that I love about this technology is the potential for individual thinking to keep that alive. And I feel like if you do your research and you become involved with the right type of blockchain, not the gimmick cryptos, but the real cryptos, you are setting yourself up to be able to have strength in the future, to be able to think for yourself and to be an individual. You won't be not as controlled by ideologies, whatever they may be. So I'm a big advocate for crypto for that reason, but the right crypto, decentralized, secure. That's why I'm so sold on Cadena, because it's a public blockchain. And now just hearing what Flux is, what you told me, I had no idea about the way that you can incorporate government, because we need that. We need governments partnerships to be able to reach mass adoption, where you have that seamless interaction as you would with fiat when you're dealing with a system of value within Argentina, for example. Like if we're going to go to the store and pay with crypto where you don't think about it, government needs to be a partner there. And Flux has an answer for that. I had no idea before this interview. So, Daniel, again, thank you for meeting with us here. And is there anything else that you want to talk about, other things that perhaps we haven't talked about down the road, or other benefits that you can share with us regarding everything you guys have done and what you're doing and what's coming?
Yep, I would say to wrap it up, well, first of all, I want to thank you for having the opportunity for me jumping on here and chatting with you today and talking to your community as well. I really do appreciate that. And I would say if you're listening to this, you ask yourself, am I too late to be part of this process? Because it's got a very large head of steam right now. And the answer is, if we were going to go to a baseball game and compare this to we're not even at the stadium yet, guys.
Yes.
So fall down the rabbit hole, come visit us, runonflux.io. You can follow us on Twitter at runonflux. You can follow me at DAK_flux. And yeah, ask questions, come visit our Discord and really take a deep dive. And I think if you even have a little technical knowledge, you're going to find the value almost immediately in what we're trying to do. So, again, thank you for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate you coming on here. Find out what proof of stake is. Find out what proof of work is. Find out the solutions. Learn about this because, as Daniel said, we're not in the stadium. We are on the ground floor of this. Most investors of crypto have no idea what this is. They are not researching the technology. They're treating it like the stock market. A lot of these blockchains, a lot of these organizations are pulling the wool over people, and people don't understand what they're investing in. So don't be one of those. Find out what you think is positive and good in the world. Seek that out, and you will see that there are solutions for you as an individual that exist in Web3, and there's not that many. And I can tell you, look into Cadena. That's where I was taken to eventually, but maybe not. If you're a dictator, maybe Cadena is not for you. So do your own research, hopefully. And if you are a dictator, Cadena is going to keep me separate from you. But my point is, do your research, learn about this technology yourself. If you're going to put your money, your hard-earned money, your 9-to-5 grind money into this technology, know what it is. Because if you are in the know, you're going to put it in the right places. And it's not that complicated to learn what these things are. There's a lot of big words, but those big words are simple ideas. People in crypto have a very fast lingo, and they will throw terms that they assume that you know. And someone who's not in this world can be easily intimidated by that. I encourage you, if you are one of those people, to stop, look at a conversation, and look up every single word and what it means. And in a very short time, you'll find yourself understanding what this technology is, how it can change the world, what it can do, and where to put your money. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you next time.